So
Nice.
we're getting there.
All
I just
natural.
don't. Yeah, all natural. Yeah, it's getting a little gray there. It's getting a little gray. I'll be 52 in March, so getting there.
Oh, really? 52. That's
Yeah.
shoot, I was gonna tell you how old my wife was, but then I just totally forgot. She's around 50, something like that.
What are you? I give you 38, maybe 39, 37.
Like 42, something like that.
Okay. Well,
We don't really keep track. I don't know. I stopped keeping track a while ago. It's like,
yeah, I try. I try. It's not that, but you know what? You look. I find that I look less bald with like this than trying to fight it like I did in my early 20s. So
right. Yeah.
yeah.
A couple years ago, I had a- um, totally just shaved my head. Not,
Okay.
and that actually was really nice, except it was a little too much maintenance. If you didn't keep up on it, then you had to start kind of all over with the buzzers and then work your way down to a razor. I'm like, oh, this is a lot of maintenance. Like, I just want
Every
to
two
have something.
days, I do it
Yeah.
every 2 days in the shower with a straight razor and some conditioner. Does the trick.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but I actually
No.
used to have really long hair, but then I can't do that anymore, Dave. I can't
Yeah,
do
I
that
have really,
anymore.
I mean, long hair, but yeah, it's not much more than like 5 strands.
Okay, there you go. No, I used to have really long hair, but I decided in my 20s, let's just go this way. So down to the wood, down to the wood. So
Yeah.
we're open to ask questions. I'm going to ask you a question just to
Yeah.
lead up, but I just wanted to get your history and kind of like and how you kind of begin to hear found the path of the Creator. Or the Creator spoke to you.
Well, it was a lot of things were happening all at one time. I was questioning, I mean, I was actively leaving Christianity,
Hmm.
and I was still going to a Bible study.
Okay.
Um and I was going to the Bible study at that point mainly because I enjoyed the company. I enjoyed hanging out. A lot of times we wouldn't even open the Bible and we'd just sit and chat, and that was great. And the other reason why I kept going was because I thought somehow I might be able to share some of my new insights I was getting about the Bible. I was really doing a lot of research and getting new perspectives on different stuff that is common knowledge outside of um, conservative evangelical Christian.
Gotcha. Yeah.
None of that was receptive. Every time I would share something I was excited about, I would get weird looks and concerned looks, and I got quieter and quieter and quieter, and I just found I had nothing to share anymore.
You're on the path to being shunned.
Yeah, they when I left, I invited them to ask me, you know, why? Because I didn't share. I didn't want to hijack the meeting. It was like, if you guys
Hmm.
want to know, I've known you for years. Ask me. Next time we hang out or chat. We've never hung out or chatted. They've never contacted me in 3 years since. So anyway, so that was the path I was on, and I was actually really considering everything: Buddhism, atheism, theosophy, paganism. Everything was open. I did not want to
Hmm.
be part of a religion for sure. And I didn't want to have religious obligations to like a holy book or to a church type of environment where there was these kind of obligations. But I wanted something. I would like to have a community. I'd like to have some kind of something to orient myself to. So I was looking for everything.
Hmm.
And this was all sort of at the beginning of 2020. A lot of stuff happening, and I was watching a lot of like political videos and sort of people who thought they had insights. And this was a political video. Somebody, I don't even know the channel, but they held up a waspy. They held up a waspy, and it's like, this is the true history. This is the true Bible. If everyone just read this, all of our, all of the confusion and problems would be, solved. I'm like, I've been doing a lot of research. I mean, I've
I've
looked
heard of
into
this
a
book. Yeah.
lot of different things, and I've never heard of a waspy. And this guy is making some pretty outrageous declarations. So I looked into it, I had told my wife we need to look into this book, and I put it on our watch list for Amazon
Hmm.
for future. And in the morning, I went to work, and in the morning, I asked my wife, like, "Did you get my text? Did you look into that book?" And she said, "I didn't look into the book, but I did buy it." I said,
Oh,
"Why did you buy it? Because we haven't done any research on it yet. We're researching everything, and this is one thing we never even researched." And she said, "I don't know why I bought it, but I had to buy it." And I was like, "Okay." And so we got it, and a week after it arrived, we bought a second one so we could each have one.
yeah, yeah. Well,
and it
that's
was
it's intense reading.
and it
You
was
know.
like from that point on, it has been like the throttle has been let out. We read every day. We read that plus a bunch of other books that we research at WASPy and get more books to research because there's so much information to go off of. It's
Hmm.
crazy. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. So I have the date. It's been since October 2021.
Okay, nice, nice.
Couple years.
That's
How about you? How
so.
long you
I
been
got
on
I
this
got a
path?
sp- I got a spiel. So so we're from the time we were younger, like we weren't active in the church, Anglican type thing, pretty where we grew up in. Like I'm in Ontario, but my
Uh-huh.
family's from Nova Scotia originally, and they followed the steel mill shutdown in Nova Scotia. They kind of went to Montreal and then kind of moved down to this area. And church was like, go for, Christmas or Sunday school or whatever. It was never a big thing. And my grandfather was like, no, I don't believe in that crap. Do what you want, but I'm not going.
Hmm.
So he was never a believer in it. Our grandfather's kind of who we model ourselves off of. Like
Yeah.
he's very, very, very manly, hardworking, that type of thing. And it just never sat with me. It just never, I was always the kid that would found it funny and got kind of kicked out in Sunday school. I wouldn't want to participate or whatever. Just never stuck with me. I knew a lot of
Yeah.
people that were like, "Oh, I'm born again." I'm like, "What does that mean?" And I remember going to this. I was with some friends, and they went to it's Heaven's Gates and Hell's Fires, and everybody's on the ground crying and kind of. I'm like, it just didn't bite. It just didn't. I just didn't have that level, right?
Hmm.
So growing up, my mother was kind of sick, dying from cancer. She passed when I was 13, and I was there when it happened. And at that point, okay, something happened. I don't know what I wouldn't say the room lit up, but I'd say that there was a presence. Something happened. Something
Hmm.
definitely spiritual happened there, and it just kind of a light turned on to me at that point that there's something more. So at 13, 14, little traumatic losing your mother, right, and being there.
Yeah.
So I went down the path of spirit guides. I was really big into martial arts and this and learning and spiritualism and all that stuff. So I was questioning, but church was never really part of that questioning. And then so my father and my brother were going into they were getting psychic readings, and there was this reading group that was happening. And
Hmm.
they came back with this paper, and it was just a couple simple questions. And the one that hit me in the head was, thou shalt have no other, if the 10 commandments are true, thou shalt have no other god before me. Well, what do you
Hmm.
think Jesus is? And it just like house of cards. But in the back of my mind, oh, when I get old, I'm just going to ask for, the whole Christianity, lack of accountability. I'm going to ask Jesus for forgiveness, and everything's good. I live
Right.
my life doing it. And just that whole house of cards, it just fell apart, and I was angry. I'm like, what? I was just angry that I had to even think that at like 18, 17 or 18.
Hmm.
So they ended up having in this group, there was this guy that owned an organization, Wayne Tardiff, and there was another guy who was psychic, Wayne Sturgeon, and they passed around this book to Aspie. And my father was a fairly, I wouldn't say devout Christian, but he believed, and he read
Hmm.
it, and he brought everybody the book. Read this book. Now my father kind of read it a little bit here and there. So me at the time, I was a little bit experimental, let's say, in psychedelics and all that stuff, and I was questioning everything. So I read the book. I started reading the book, and it just hit me. It just hit me as a truth. And the first thing that basically it's challenged, stop eating meat. That's
Yeah.
basically do not, you know, basically do not eat what I created alive. And
Hmm.
that's what really spoke to me. That just kind of like, okay, it just changed who I was at that point. I mean, there was some growing as well in there. So I was a vegetarian, very strict at 19 till I was about 25, and then I was doing a little bit of partying, and I got kind of made my way back in, and then around 29, I just made a covenant with the Creator to not eat any meat again, so off the meat. And recently, I do a little bit. I even just got off cheese too, because now I find out there's
Oh,
rennet in cheese, which is calf stomach. I've never been able to drink either, so I get very very sick, and the male side of my family is like that on the
mm,
Gabriel side. So drinking was never a thing. There was marijuana, LSD, DMT, all that stuff too. Those things kind of made their way in there. But I I'd have to say using um, psychedelics is still a little bit of a crutch that I would like to say isn't a bad thing depending on the setting and what you use it for. But
yeah.
nothing. I'm too old to have be screwed up in the head for 2 months from doing an acid trip anymore. But I did in my early 20s. In my early 20s, I did quite a bit, and I did see a few things and kind of helped me through some things. And my older brother too, because he had a trauma that I kind of discovered together that happened to him when he was younger, and it kind of made a big difference in his life too. So as that progressed, I've always kind of I consider myself a faithist, but as a faithist, I'm a terrible faithist. Do I do everything? I try my best, and as I've progressively got a little older, I try to live by some of the tenets that I'm supposed to. But
Hmm.
as when I first found out about it, it was like I want to tell everybody. Man,
Yeah.
I want to tell everyone. Oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? And in reading it, so I started reading it. The top section and the bottom section, because if you don't do it that way, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I'd make my way through, and it's kind of like peeling layers of an onion. And it says, it's basically it's not. This isn't a Bible. Your words you speak aren't the truth as soon as you speak them, right?
Hmm.
So it's more of a guide. And so I kind of incorporated some of these things as I was going on and learning. But I do remember very very adamantly telling people and destroying their beliefs in Christianity, or giving them a hard time and making them question. And
Hmm.
that really isn't the right thing to do, because I actually remember having dreams of being attacked by a Jesus. Right, I was actually
Really.
being attacked one, because you have all these Judaic influences, and you want to
Yeah.
you want to look at it, the local Jesus over the local church. Well, he's not too angry if you tell him people in his flock the truth, and that's really
Hmm.
the way it works. So I remember that, and just doing some deeper reading. It's like, it's the path between the creator it's between the creator and that person. It's not my right to come in and try to interfere with that.
Right.
I can inspire by good deeds, and doing the right thing or being nice. But to come in and tell somebody the truth when they're not ready to hear it, I'm interfering with their path. And that's probably sinning, or that is sinning against them, because it's their own time. So that was something I was guilty of when I was
How long
young,
did that phase last for you? Because I went through it
uh,
too. I mean,
probably like young and dumb too. So I'm talking probably the first year. I'm like,
yeah.
screech, like, I gotta tell everybody about this. Did you ever hear about this? And then it just comes to the point, like, I had a hard enough time the way I look explaining that I was a vegetarian. So I was in my twenties and 30s. I was doing powerlifting. I was sweating equipoise. I was like 320 pounds, and no one would accept that it was a vegetarian, right? So
Right.
that was that was part of the thing too. Let's see oh, Cosmin Art. I don't know if I saw Cosmin Cowler, but I thought I ordered some stuff from Cosmin Art. If he's a shout out to him, that I still have that piece. But I'm just reading the comments on the bottom.
Yeah.
But so I just kind of through that phase of, what, just learn to be yourself, and treat people, become angelic in your behaviors. Like, don't, an angel of the creator would never identify themselves to somebody, right? If you have a dream, oh, my father's passed, or my mother passed, or my grandfather, or whatever. If you have a dream of someone identifying themselves, it's not of the creator that's doing that, right? That's Judaic influence. So that was
Hmm.
that was that was part of accepting and learning that piece. And that's kind of hard, because we take these things and we make them all about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's that hard part of the past. So me, at the same time as learning these, but I did stick to these tenets as far as, not eating meat. So like I said, I'm, fit. I probably half of, my adult life, other than 4 years, I've been, a vegetarian. And I don't preach it to people, but sometimes when I'm with somebody, or they end up they may become a vegetarian, but I find it really hard to be around people for very long that aren't vegetarians, because you get that Judaic influence, and there's it seems like sometimes it feels like you're attacked. Do you know what I mean? Spiritually,
I
you
know
get
what you
attacked
mean.
too. Yeah, and the
Mhm.
last thing people want to hear. So I mean, it's a hard thing to it's a hard path to walk, but I think it's
Yeah.
the right path to walk. And like I said, in the West, he says, it said some corn in the field will grow taller first. But I think that the circle of people that we're around and we influence, if we do the right things, those are going to be the people that we're going to be helping to bring up.
Mhm.
In the next resurrection, as we're making our way up, we're going to have to, or we're going to volunteer to want to bring these up, other than family, which we're bound to, unfortunately. And if you have family, you're bound to them. That's going to be one of our biggest labors, right? But
Yeah,
a
that'll be
joyous.
it. That'll be
Sorry, go
really
ahead.
interesting to my sister is cool. We've had lots of conversations, but my mom, uh, like, and my dad, like, I don't know, they've avoided. They know I've left Christianity. I mean, they sort of know, but they have avoided any real depth of conversation. It's like, well, it's gonna come eventually. We're gonna be able to have a real conversation eventually. So it's just a matter of time here.
But like I said, if you can do the right thing, and remember, eventually they're going to recognize what you did, and
Hmm.
you're going to be able to help them that way. But I mean, and there's also good and bad charity, and this is the thing I've been struggling with in the last while of my life. Like, helping people getting taken
Yeah.
advantage of there's this fine line, returning good for evil. So helping friends throughout my life, where if I didn't help them, they would have made their way through it and did it. So I've sinned against them, and I've had bad charity, and it's kind of examining those. And that type of person that'll take advantage of that charity is the type of person
Hmm.
that will kind of influence your life in a negative way. And that's why I say, like, the kind of the Judaic influences, because if you walk out in public or you go to the grocery store, well, you're coming back and you're full of them. But having the Creator in your life, and what I'll pray for. Okay, I'll pray for the Jujas that are attached to me. For to have them removed, or have them work with me, because if they're with you for a long time, which a lot of them will be, because they've grown up with you, they're either going to be able to sustain themselves with you or not, right? So
Hmm.
that's that other thing. But some people have hundreds or thousands of them on them,
Yeah.
and it's really tough. But sorry to deviate from that, but when bad charity, you're not just providing bad charity to one person, you're providing bad charity to a host of people,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I've been kind of struggling with, and trying to do the right thing. And sometimes the right thing is just to, is to be an example, to not take credit for being an example, but to be an angelic being. And our forefathers or mothers are with us from these generations, and they're not interfering in our life. They're being there. They're loving us, probably from a distance, because we're little filthy creatures spiritually.
Yeah.
But they're doing our best in an example, and they're not taking credit for it or identifying themselves. But I think when we're able to kind of progress to doing that in our lives, and to
Yeah.
not sing against people, right down to the fact of, okay, don't talk about people. That's really tough. That's a really tough rule. you know that's really hard. But until we start to cleanse ourselves to not be able to talk bad about people, because I talk bad about someone, my asher is going to go to their asher and say, by the way, this is what happened.
Hmm.
And we have to clear ourselves spiritually, in order or of our thoughts, to clear ourselves. Once it's hard to clear your thoughts. I lost the thought. But if to be clean spiritually in what you
Hmm.
say and what you do, so that's quite a daunting task. And coming
Yeah.
as I progress into that's it takes a lifetime, I'm sure. And I really didn't. The path wasn't revealed to me till I was in my late teens, right? And I wasn't always optimum on it, and I am a work in progress, like everybody. But in order to have that progression, it takes a lifetime to do it. I gotta, everybody's on a with what's going on these days. We're on a little bit of a not the same path as someone that was born a faithist that through 6 or 7 generations of non-mediators. So we have a little bit of a disadvantage, but we also have an advantage too, because obviously right now there's such a degree of light changing there in the cosmic era, that there's such a degree of things happening that everybody's becoming awake, and it will
Oh yeah.
happen. Right. So, and everybody's awakening. And like I said, it's like boiling a pot of filthy water. All the crap rises to the top before that water
Hmm.
starts to boil. And I think that's what we're starting to see. So, sorry, I'm having a big ramble.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm enjoying it. Talking about all the attachments and stuff. My wife and I view that because we kind of gone through the phase of telling everybody, and then sort of like now we're sort of like just sticking to ourselves. We're searching for a way of ministry. We're searching for a way of service. We've talked about good and bad charity. We've considered all of these things, and we're just like, what can we do right now? And for us, dealing with all these attachments is our ministry,
Hmm.
because we can hold the light. And my philosophy is a little, it's not different than my wife, but she's very proactive about getting rid of um, any attachments that are attacking her. As long as I'm not being attacked, I'm not bothered, like, because as I learn in my sphere of influence will learn too. She's very sensitive and can feel attacks more than I can anyway. So she's more proactive about it. But it 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 sometimes when we have these drudges that are on us and they release, sometimes it does feel like there's an aha moment, like their confusion is, and they're very emotional. Like, I mean, it's the whole range of emotions, but it feels like a ministry. And so that's where we're at right now, is trying to stay. We can't, I don't think there's a way of preventing it, but we can turn it into a ministry. So
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as that, I think it's there's a dark inspiration, and there's a light inspiration.
yeah.
So how do we? It's a hard. Sorry, someone's here. Wasn't the, wasn't Jehovah's Witnesses, was it? So someone, someone was it really was. I'm laughing. It actually was. Yeah,
Oh really?
yeah. That's a joke. My Great Dane just told me he wasn't interested.
It's the wrong Jehovah. Keep going.
Yeah, you got it spelled wrong. You got it spelled wrong. So
That's
yeah,
funny.
it's a battle, like I said. But like, so it's like if you're friends with one person, or you were friends with people in that church and those attachments, you were friends with a few generations of people that have been involved in that church and in that building. So I'll tell you a story that involves illicit drugs. So my brother and I were when we first started, and we took we were on some LSD just walking in town, and we
Hmm.
walked by this church, and you could hear them inside. It was kind of like this moaning and looking, it's kind of hard to
Hmm.
explain, and it maybe sounded crazy, but they're trapped in that institution. They're looking. And I remember in the last I forget, I can't quote, I'm not very good as I'm no Salah Salam, and I said his name wrong because I watch the stuff on YouTube, but he's got the text down. Like, the
Oh
guy's
yeah.
amazing. But it's like they're in a well, and someone's throwing the rope down to them to save them for their salvation, and they're ignoring it, and they're looking for Jesus at the bottom there, right? And no, no,
Hmm.
look up. There's a rope. It's really easy. You grab the rope, you pull it up. We'll help you out. It's full of light, all that stuff, and they're not doing that. So they're not capable. So it's just, I think, by being a beacon and doing the right thing, as you grow spiritually, you will help them. It's not an immediate thing. So for you, because the creator has spoken to you, and that's why you're here, and that's why you've got, it's kind of like the quickening, you got quickened. When
Hmm.
that happened, it's a process that will happen to other people that you have some kind of influence over, but
Yeah.
it's not going to happen tomorrow. And there's a lot of angst and anger towards you. Like, I mean, it's it's tough. And like I said, I wasn't really thoroughly involved in the church, so I could just
Hmm.
imagine. But I know many people that I said when I went around and took the floorboards out of them and made them realize that what they believed in was silly. They didn't like that very much, right? And it's traumatic for them. So it's
Oh yeah.
if it's physically traumatic, imagine how spiritually traumatic it's them and for the Jujas that are attached to them. So it's not an easy thing, but I think that the path to doing that is the one that you're on, and how we influence people is just by being nice, doing the right thing, and like we're these beings stuck in these physical bodies right now, a corporeal being, but the growth that we do spiritually as we're on this path is something that will register and they'll remember, and those are the people we'll be helping when
Hmm.
we leave our mortal coil.
Yeah. Well, we've been reading a WASP for a couple of years, and we did have the phase where we are telling everybody, but um, now, yeah, it's more quiet and living by example. And there have been some surprising people that are just like, I was thinking about getting that book that you talk about every once in a while. And like, really? Okay, well, if you get it, let us know. We can read it together, or if you have any questions about it, hit us up. But it's like, yeah, it's like this gentle wave of influence, and you're not really trying, and then uh, comments will just sort of naturally come up in conversation, and it's encouraging. And really, what's really encouraging for me, this mindset shift that I had leaving Christianity was of judgment of other people and having to prove yourself being right. My church is
Hmm.
better than your church kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel so much more capable of just letting things be without coercion or judgment or pressure or whatever. I can just exist, and I can have conversations with people. And, I have great conversations with people who believe everything. I've talked to people. So I do TikToks and
Hmm.
occasionally, and I've talked to everybody under the sun, and it's great. As a non-Christian, I can talk to everybody and have a good time because we're just connecting as humans. We're not trying to persuade each other of anything, which is um, liberating and so refreshing compared to my whole life.
So we're all looking for the creator, right? And
Hmm.
that's the sin of what Loy Mong and organized heavens do, and we want to think about that. So you imagine these high raised beings that have been alive for 2,000 years or 3,000 years or
Hmm.
5,000 years, away from they get dark and they come down and they do the opposite of what should be done, and being a being and knowing what the implications of it, they go and do that anyway. So we go through these periods of self-doubt, but to be who we are today and have this light within us. But you imagine these gods or these angels that have kind of know a lot better than we do, and they still go ahead and fall down in darkness.
Yeah.
So to be able to, where was I going with it? To have the ability to still maintain that
Yeah.
is good. But we all look for that. We all look for that, and that's okay. That's the sin of what the any organized religion does, is it puts that filter of, oh yeah, you're looking for the Father. Oh, but you got to look through this lens of Jesus or Buddha or whoever,
Hmm.
or whoever it is these days, Bill Gates or whoever.
Yep.
They want you to look through the lens of them first, but it it's a huge sin because we are looking for the Father, and that's the Father and Mother, that's within us, and we have that. So when someone prays, and the sin of that, if they're praying to Jesus, and they're actually really the main goal of that is since the voice of God has been on the planet, that we want. And I know if I remember that correctly, was it Zarathustra, when we were all, everybody has an eternal life when the voice of God came to the level zero, that we
Hmm.
actually are looking for that, and that to sin against that. But when you look at the big things, so the larger organizations were cleared out, and there's some smaller ones, and they obviously still exist, and I think they obviously exist over many levels of government today to what we're seeing, right? Be
Right.
it Washington, be it Ottawa, be it England. I'm sure there's organized heavens, and they can get along. They can commute a lot better than they used to. It used to be on ships. That's how Loimong and the boys made their way over here. Was
Yeah.
was on ships, and now we have airplanes and fast travel. So I think you have an attempt to be an organized heaven, but still based on the past names of worship that were worshipful, and it's going to fall apart. There's going to be some damage in the meantime, and it's going to be a test of our spiritual ability and how we handle it. No one gets out of this game alive, but how do we handle it between point A and point B? And I,
Yeah.
I heard I just listened to the I forget what his name was, the last one that you had up. I'm not that good with
Oh,
names.
Ben.
Yeah, yeah, Ben. So and
Yeah.
and I have the same thing. I would love to get in and create a community, right? But again, I also have this thing, love to win the lottery. I put too much time into that. But what can you do? What can you do today to be, prepare your own soul and be bigger, right? To give, and that's the more the weird part about how we grow is the more we give away, right? We're like, the
Hmm.
more, and it's a tough model, David. It's a tough model, but it's well worth it. And I've seen a lot of growth for who I am, and part of it is admitting too. Okay, I don't do anything good. There's nothing that I've ever done as good. Anything that's good that's ever come out from me has come from the Creator. I'm just a
Hmm.
I'm just a vessel that goodness, the Creator happened to choose me to be nice to the person and hold open that door. I'm too selfish of a little being, stuck inside this placenta in the earth, to,
Yeah.
to even have the power to do something nice or have an original thought. So and it's kind of learning that you don't do anything nice, but giving power over or being subservient to the fact that, what, nothing's good's come from me, but if I open my heart to the Creator and ask for that, then that the Creator works for you to do nice things. And that was a bit of it's putting your ego in check. What do you mean I don't do anything good? But
Yeah.
I'm a part of a good thing, but I don't make a decision to do anything good because we talk about, I heard you talking about Satan and stuff. Satan is self, our need for leadership or need to, or animals need, or symbiotic relationship. But a big thing for me was to accept that, what, there's a master, and we have to be able to open ourselves up to the fact that nothing good comes from us, but we're very good when we allow it to happen, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Oh no, it totally does. Some of the things I really liked about Owaspy was the teachings of that we are like part of the body of the Creator, like the imagery of a beam of light shining on a wall. We're not the source of the light, but we're an extension of the light. That is sort of manifesting in reality, and the light doesn't come from us, but we're like part of that creation, like part of the Creator, an extension of the Creator, and yeah, yeah. But it's a
Collect.
choice. It's a choice to participate in the light because you can choose the other way. Yeah.
And you know what, darkness is just isn't fun. It's not. But and I go back to some of the original things that I first learned in the last meeting. I looked, and these things present themselves like, the sinking of the continent pan totally makes sense. You take a big continent, sink it down, the damage and destruction. But when you look at the Ring of Fire, and you look at, when you go and look at Google Earth and go and I don't know if you ever looked at the Pacific Ocean and realize if you look at it, you can look at the Ring of Fire and see where the continent's been pushed down. Have you ever done that,
Yeah.
Google Earth?
Oh yeah.
It is it is just crazy. It's like, how did anybody else not know this? But at the end of the day, there at the end of the day, it's who can accept that if you're not ready to hear the truth, and that's what it is.
Hmm.
But when the truth is revealed to you, it's everywhere, right? It's totally everywhere when you're ready to look and see it. But that was one of my first things when I looked at the Ring of Fire, and this is way back when I'm talking dial up internet here, or
Where'd
local
you get out
bulletin
your
boards.
atlas? See the world atlas.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Breaking out the atlas, like look at the Ring of Fire. It's perforated. It's where the continent was. It's like almost some very powerful god come down and open up the Earth vortex and said, you know,
Hmm.
cleave them off. Okay, so and this is what happened, and you looked at it, it's like that the damage, and then you know that did, and then you look at all these the civilizations from the past, and I'm doing a little bit of delving into that too. Like even look on some of it talks about, and I got to go reread it about, the Native American population, the canal builders, and all these
Oh yeah.
walls in Peru and stuff like that. So I mean, there's canals up here. Like I'm looking at them, the Rideau Canal system and the Trent Way. And you look at the Mississippi and all these things. Like, how did we build these 120 years ago? I don't think we could build these today. And I think this was existing infrastructure, but it talks about the canal builders in the OASP
Hmm.
too. So yeah, there's so many things that are, and we'll eventually know it. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's just
So anybody who reads a WASP is becomes a researcher, I think, automatically. What would, okay, you looked into Pan. I mean, you've looked in, have you looked into like Zoroastrianism?
yeah, yeah, that's pretty fascinating too. Yeah. Now, but do I look at is the existing that religion existing today? Is that like what exists today from Joshua the prophet? What Christianity is?
Oh,
Is you know what I mean?
well,
Did
there's
did his
definitely a timeline of change. I looked into the sort of the modern manifestation of it and was excited, and then also sort of realized that, it's another religion that has been sort of um has add-ons to it. What would you
mhm.
expect for something, the oldest monotheistic religion in the world that's still practicing? It's going to have additions, cultural traditions, and stuff like that. But
It seems to be
we
a
actually did,
template for all modern religions, kind of like J.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings is the template for all of our all of our modern storytelling today, right?
yeah. We just got a book, and I don't know the name of it. My wife, I probably couldn't pronounce it. She did the research on it, and it's a translation and transliteration of the ancient Zoroastrian like prayers, and I don't know. She's the one reading it, so I really can't speak onto it. But she read me some of the stuff, and this was just recently translated. I think in the '80s, it was finally finished, 1980s, and the language of it is the vocabulary sharing with the WASP is remarkable. Like
Hmm.
I have resigned myself that the concepts in a WASP are can be found, but you have to look for different labels to find the same concepts. But the vocabulary of this Zoroastrian text is the same vocabulary as what's found in Owaspy, and it was not translated back then. And I don't know how, it's like just another one more reason. Like people, I mean, I haven't gotten into any arguments about it, but I know that there are people who are skeptical about the origins of Owaspy. It's like, but how could it possibly be a guy doing research, because this stuff wasn't available? I mean, this is just so vast amount of knowledge. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people when the first thing they do, like people will be threatened by the truth and go and look at Wikipedia. But if you read the Wikipedia definition of the OASP, if you read it objectively, you kind of realize, well, it makes sense. But nobody wants to hear the truth until they're ready to hear the truth, right? So everybody's
Yeah.
going to put their lens of what they think is right on top of it. And how many people have I known throughout the years and respect to find out that they're devout worshipers of Jesus, and it's just like, okay, well, it's hard, right? It's a hard task to kind of respect that, but it's also the task to respect it at the same time, and that's the path of being a faithist, which is difficult. It's definitely not an easy thing. But back to the whole Zarathustra is, you look at in those cycles, in the arc cycles, 3,000 years arc cycle is kind of like your arteries over your lifetime. They come down, they clear everything out. By at the end of that 2 or 3,000 years, the arteries starting to get clogged up, right? And enter religion, enter self-serving people or self-serving gods in the lower heavens that make things, and
Hmm.
like the clearest example you can think of that would be a celebrity. Like look at Elvis. Elvis, big Elvis fans. You think they're getting right in front of Jesus when these people die because they have that much fervor for Elvis. They're going to visit Elvis in heaven. You know,
Who got themselves attached,
yeah, they're going
bound.
right. They're going right over to Graceland, in the little small heaven over Graceland, right?
Instead of being bound for their promised land, they're bound for Graceland.
Yes, exactly. And you see that with celebrity status, and people, how they, you look at these rock stars and how they get the energy, and they're still, that's what they want. They don't want, they've got all the money, they've got all, the privacy, whatever they have, but really they just want to be worshipped. Right. And, and
Hmm.
and and they will be if that's their wish. But like I said, my goal now, my goal when I was 20 to be well known or to be famous, my goal now is I don't want anybody mentioning my name when I'm dead. I don't want to be an anchor. I don't want to be anchor. I want to be I want to be loved. I want to be
Yeah.
respected. But when you thought of by people that are alive, it should be positive, not like, oh, that son of a bitch, he owes me money, he did this,
Mm,
or I can't believe this, and it's just like an anchor, and to make up
yeah.
for what you've done in your life and the sins you've created. And we sin against people every day. It's just making it right. And if we can do it now and do the hard work and the legwork now, oh, we're a lot better off. And do you
Yeah.
have children, David, or?
Yeah, I have two boys. They live with their mother most of the time. So she's my ex-wife, and I'm remarried, and she has a bunch of kids, and through her, I have a bunch of grandkids, and so pretty big family. Um, and yeah, it'll make it really interesting when we're all on the other side, getting everything sorted out, because it's a very diverse amount of belief systems. I grew up Seventh Day Adventist. My wife and all of her family were in were and are, depending on who you're talking about, entrenched in LDS church, and it's going to be interesting. Yeah, when we're bound to our family, and we're the ones who are higher have to um, teach the ones still in darkness. Um, going to be some interesting conversations. I
Plant
wonder
gener
exactly
our
how that's
DNA
going to
lasts for
work.
7 years. Our DNA lasts for only 7 generations.
But yeah, only 7 generations. That's it.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying, David?
No, I don't know, but that's the story of. I mean, that's my family. It's my two boys. They're young. They're 14 and like 12, and they know I've stopped being a Christian. I talk very frankly with them, and I've read from a waspy with them, but nothing to be persuasive. Just anything I find that would be interesting and cool, that they would, some of the descriptions of the Ethereans and their fire ships, and the descriptions of stuff that you know is way more interesting than like the world building of like Marvel comics, the Marvel movies. Like, this is way cooler than all that. They're
Hmm.
very interested in some of that stuff, and so
So,
yeah.
and you know what? It can be taken by the wrong people. It can be taken and perverted too, because I do believe L. Ron Hubbard had some inspirations from the OSP, right?
Really,
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
heard that. I mean,
yeah.
kind of makes sense. I mean, I don't know a lot about Scientology, but a little bit I do know. Yeah, I can see a little bit of influence there.
Yeah, I read that a few years ago when like some kind of a group on, I forget what it was. It was like we're talking way back before Facebook stuff. So I made a mistake too of when I first got into it. I was very combative towards faithists that weren't vegetarians that said that. I was very combative, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
one of those things. It was like you get in there and have a bitch fest, but it's not who I am these days. It's just be who you are, and
Mm-hmm.
inspire your life. But when you're talking about your family and all those, you've been given a gift where you're the one that's going to be able to maybe walk into that knot one day in a
Mm-hmm.
couple hundred years to some or 100 years or whatever it is, and hold that beacon and clear these people out because you're familiar and you knew, you did the right thing. And
Yeah.
that was revealed to you first, and by by raising others up is how we, how we grow and raise up, and that's probably a task you'll readily volunteer for. But as we know, with some family members, it's going to be difficult. you know?
I'm excited. Like, I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm just curious to know, like, what the process is going to look like, because it'll be interesting. Like, what will the process be? Because right now the process is, like you said, just basically just live your life in sort of a quiet, manner that is, consistent with faithism. What's it going to look like, for different playing playing field? So
Yeah, when they wrap us up in our birth blankets and we don't even know how to form our own bodies, I think it's 5 years. That's 5 years if you were vegetarian or you just got yanked from a knot or something like that. But it's going to be different because we don't know, because we can't comprehend it. It's like chickens inside of an egg trying to figure out, you know, how things are going to be. No
yeah,
idea, right? We're inside a womb, and then we go to another womb, which is the atmospherian heavens before we're even able to go ahead into the ethereal realms. So
yeah, it's a concept that makes a lot of sense, and that was the first thing I struggled with to try and make it make sense, because intellectually it made sense, but I was like struggling so hard just to combat my cognitive dissonance on it.
yeah,
Let me
it's
ask.
it is. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about one, sort of just change the subject a little bit, or back to what you were asking me about, your family. Tell me a little about your family, and then also, if you have any. So you've been doing this for a while. Your experience with other faithists, like not on the internet, but like any experience with in person, like community or people that you've known in
No,
your
pretty
life.
lonely on the faithist side. So my older brother is a faithist. So James, my older brother, and my father, who's passed now, we kind of started this journey together. My father was a little, he was very wrapped up in Christianity and had some issues. There's a lot of stuff he couldn't let go, but he believed to the core. He believed in the Creator, and I have faith that he's adapted in the afterlife. He passed 2 years ago in April, but really we
Mm,
were the only ones. My younger brothers kind of dabbled in it, but again, part of the problem with him is he was very didn't want to be too involved in it because we were like preaching from the mountains about it because it was new to us, right? And it wasn't his time. And my father was
mhm.
pretty aggressive about that as well. We're presenting it as the truth when someone's not ready to hear it. That's between the creator and that person, and
Yeah,
that's where I've went wrong several
it kind of
times, right?
hijacks their journey a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, and that's on us, right? We've done that, we've created that problem, so that's on us. And again, that's a task that we're going to be willing and volunteering to fix in this life or the next one when they're ready. And those people will be open to hear the truth of your perspective when they're ready. It's just that it was before they were ready. So, and that's part of the problem. I have a daughter who's now 25, going on 26. She was I didn't feed her meat growing up. Her mother
Yeah.
did. She's still more of a carnivore, but she's kind of questing. And I just I hope, but I don't push. I never pushed it on her. The only
Hmm.
rule I had is that I don't have it in the house and I don't cook it. And when she started, she would eat it when she was at her mother's, and when she was old enough and she wanted to have it, I said, "You buy it. You're gonna cook it at someone else's house and you eat it at someone else's house." But I just just never really pushed it, right?
Yeah.
But my family, per se, I wouldn't say that they were faith. I wouldn't even really class them as Christians that much because my grandfather was a strong personality, and it was
Hmm.
never church never had a really big dire influence. And I look at it too. If we're the center point of that happening, I think it's like more of like a ripple than linear. So if it happens here, I think it's forward generations and backward generations as we're able to help. And I'm sure that our
Hmm.
ancestors are like, yes, finally, they've
Yeah, I know, right?
third gen. Oh, we thought this was never going to happen, right? But that's through long lines of 12-hour shifts and lights and being inspired and hoping for the best. And that's just,
Yeah.
so in order for you to be here today, there's been a lot of work to get you to that point through from your guardian angels, right? From your family. So they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder because in my family, I'm a fourth or fifth generation Adventist. So if I go back, like, at what point are people starting to wake up now that are on the other side? Are they still struggling? Or, I mean, in the span of eternity, it's not that long since they've been, on the other
I,
side.
I would assume that the knot would have been cleared if it's happening to you, and because there's not a real big seated root, let's say in the churches, and that belief hasn't been in the United States that long, that would probably be easier to clear out than, let's say, something in Europe or France or England. So
That's true.
if you're getting that now, obviously there's some action behind the scenes that we haven't seen yet, and that's
Yeah.
obviously what happened to myself as well, and to anybody else that is identified themselves as a faithist, because the Creator speaks to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a voice per se. Do I hear the Creator's voice? No. But when I do something wrong, and the Creator speaks in a very loud voice, the Creator,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm off path, the Creator just doesn't fuck around. The Creator is very to the point. And you'll find that along your journey when you are making a mistake. And something I've always learned too, if I'm driving my car or whatever, and I hit a bird or something like that, I'll say, okay, what am I doing wrong? It's a self, what has brought me to this point that I'm here. That what is the lesson that the Creator's trying to teach me? What have I done wrong today? And it's usually in
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts or how I've treated somebody. It's usually
Yeah.
when I'm having a real negative thought, and those
Yeah, that
those
makes
are,
sense. I haven't
yeah.
actually thought about that.
Because I mean, it,
Like,
it hits you hard. It's like, well, it hits me hard, not as hard as it hit the bird, but it hits you hard. And I was like, these little things, and then the Creator speaks in a loud actions or his voice, and that's his voice. You're off path, you're off center, and it's you really speaking to yourself. But it's
mm-hmm.
not, to me, it becomes less subtle the more I get into it. Is that the,
uh,
the Creator has a very loud voice.
yeah, sometimes it feels like I mean, for me, if I'm off track and I get like a nauseated feeling, like
Hmm.
it feels sick to my stomach, until that's like trying to get my attention, like you with the bird, like it's like, wake up, you're not acting correctly, you're not thinking correctly right now. Yeah, it's always trying to get our attention some way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like like I said, it's a learning process, and we each have our own individual specific journey. So I don't think the path is going to be the same for everybody. And like I said,
Hmm.
I haven't really run into a lot of faith. It's like, 'cause I have reached out a few times, and like I said, I do a couple things online, kind of paying attention to you guys online, and what's going on a little bit. And that's when
Yeah.
I've been watching some of the things you did, and I think we've
Yeah.
been friends for maybe a year or so. And I've been watching some of the things you did and some other stuff, and I don't really poke my head out of the sand too often, but I decided, what, I liked a couple of talks I saw that you had, and I thought it was a cool idea. When you put that up, anybody, I'm like, yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get Jamia to come on, and so she's shy. She doesn't want to. But yeah, this is so the I'm friends with a lot of faiths on Facebook, but I don't really know very many of them because it's one, there's a time factor. Like, exchanging comments isn't really getting to know people. You have to be able to have some interaction, like really meaningful interaction, like what we're having now, where you can actually look at each other. It's hard to find, um, connecting the schedules. It's still puts a lot of effort, and so I really have not been able to get to know as many faiths as I want, but it's an ongoing
There's
process. And the other
there's not a
part of
lot
that
of
is
us.
there's not a lot.
That,
Yeah, and the other part of that is, um the idea of sort of not putting yourself out there. Like, my wife and I have gone through phases where, like, we're going radio silent for a while because we just feel we just one, we don't want to put our target on ourselves. And, it's like several reasons. We just need to have quiet, no TikTok, no Facebook, just keep everything on the down low for a while. And then other times, like, I gotta go out there. I gotta meet people, other Faithists, and also TikTok. I've met a lot of people that never heard of Faithist, but when they start hearing about a waspy, they really get interested. Like, oh my goodness, this is stuff that I've already been studying, but it's all in one place.
Hmm.
So,
I think the biggest stumbling block usually for people is the diet, and to only to not eat anything that was alive, and the stuff that was in the sun, raised, which totally
mhm,
makes sense, right? It totally makes sense. But that's usually a pretty big stumbling block for like I said, going back, like I was a vegetarian and a single father before it was cool. There there was there was no there was nothing you get at a restaurant. There was no family bath. There's all these things, right? So like it was a bit of a it was a bit of a journey there, but in this amount of time since I've been there, there's no where we are today. This has taken, it's taken from when I became a faithist, when you became a faithist, to come to here today, to meet, right? So the
mhm,
creators obviously involved. There's nothing happenstance. There's no coincidence, and just like there's nothing to be scared of. And that's another thing, that becoming a faithist, or putting my faith in the creators, like you don't have fear. There's no fear. Anything that happens, even if a wild pack of wolves rip you apart, that's because the creator wants it to happen. There's going to
mhm,
be an outcome positive for you. Maybe not at the time when you're being ripped apart by a pack of rabid wolves, but it's meant to happen. So we don't know the creator's design, but not having fear in that. And that's one of the when I started riding motorcycles, and you're gonna die, but this and that. And it's like, okay, you know what? If it's my time, as long as I'm responsible and I'm not out there looking for death, if it's my time to go, or whatever happens, is because the creator has chosen this is my time. We have so many heartbeats, and when the creator moves his hand from your heart that keeps you alive, and then it's your time, right? We move
mhm.
on, and so many people live in fear. How many people during COVID did changed who they were? I don't know if I can say that. You do. How many people changed
Yeah,
because they were scared? Oh, I don't want to die. Well, guess what? Newsflash: we all die.
yeah. COVID was a
Especially.
huge eye opener to me how easily people can flip the switch on their beliefs, on their on everything, and it's like mass hysteria, and then all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, it's fine, whatever." Like, I don't know.
But
Yeah, the whole
don't
COVID
think
thing was
that
just
wasn't
really
don't
bizarre.
think that wasn't organized in the lower heavens, though. That whole thing
Oh,
was
I
organized.
totally get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
pandemic. Yeah, my wife and I were
yeah,
saying that for a long time. Yeah,
yeah. But you
that was
wonder.
felt like black magic. Like
Well, they're trying to
group
they're trying to
stuff.
populate a lower heaven, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get
Mhm.
worshipful beings that don't worship the creator. No longer worship the church, because the church is falling apart. So they want them to worship science, or whatever gods they put in front of them. Maybe they'll throw Elvis up there. We don't know. But at the end of the day, it's to populate the lower heavens, which is always the
Mhm.
end game for these, because they need worshipful servants, and maybe they should read the WASP and realize what had happened, to all the deists and Lowy Mong and Toth and everybody
Mhm.
before them. It's not a pretty picture. So you imagine this. Like, I think of my favorite prime minister, and I got to talk bad about him, Justin Trudeau. The decisions he's made, and how responsible. So he's going to have to right all the wrongs he created for what? Some fame, so
Mhm.
a trip to a specific island, whatever his thing was, that he wanted to be the most important person, and he was for a while, and it didn't work out. And you have to make that right with everybody that you've messed up. I wouldn't want that. Could you imagine
Oh
that?
man.
And that's Satan, and that's that ultimate selfishness, that you're going to be that dumb, and because let's face it, the creator's voice is the loudest, even through a mediator, when you're doing the big wrong.
Mhm.
You choose to ignore that, there will be a penalty, and it'll be a severe one, and it, because your higher self, you will judge yourself when that comes, and you will put your own punishment on you, and it ain't gonna be pretty. So to
Yeah.
avoid that, but for what? Like, for what? For 20 years, 30 years of glory in a corporeal world, You want
Totally not
one
worth it.
one chick in the egg got treated better than the other. He lived in luxury inside his egg. You know what I mean? Back to that
Hmm.
chicken in the egg. It's just the prices they exact upon themselves for this type of behavior. It's just going
Even
to
the
be.
even the prices that they're having to pay right now in order to be included in that level of society.
Hmm.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I've heard stories for sure, but to actually be a part of it and have that be something acceptable, I can do that, and if I can get here, like really, everyone's
What
doing these horrible things, and they're like smiling and like, oh yeah, famous, rich, how do they sleep at night? Like how
the
do they sleep at night?
Well, I guess they've been doing enough that they can. So, but I mean, that's the one sin that's never really forgiven. It's always written on your soul. Is murdering of another person that the Creator created alive, right? That's you wear that for eternity. That's not a good one to have.
Hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
prefer to I prefer to live this corporeal life without doing that to somebody. Successful so
Yeah,
far.
that would be ideal. I think that would definitely be the best outcome. Don't kill
Yeah.
people.
No, no, that's bad, and we know that. We know that. And like I said, it says when you asked me to, you cannot mask, murder with the word war. You know, you,
Hmm.
you can't mask it with and this may be offensive to some, but it talks about abortions in the last too. It says you cannot mask murder with any word. You do
Hmm.
not create someone that the creator. You do not kill someone the creator created alive, and it's a big one. That's fundamental. We know that from a young child. We know that's built in. That's a factory setting. We don't kill
Yeah.
others, right?
I was talking to, I mean, every time I talk to people, Muslims, um, the the idea of, justice comes up a lot. And I was trying to, just tell present these some of the structures of faithism. And one of them is vegetarian and also um, pacifism,
Hmm.
and they're like, well, you wouldn't defend your family, they gave all these scenarios, your house is being robbed or, whatever. And it's like, I would definitely try and avoid a situation like that. And like, and in their mind, the idea of not defending your family, like taking someone's life or seeking justice for an injustice, falls squarely on their shoulders, and that's part of their identity. And they really having a hard time understanding why anybody would want to be a pacifist. Um, and I tried giving some examples, and the idea that nothing good, like violence for the sake of violence to combat violence, is only going to bring more violence.
Yep. It
And
always has.
if you believe, and Muslims do, that this world is not the end, but it's the beginning, if you believe that, then what is the point? What's the point? Like if when you die you're going somewhere else, what's the point of taking that justice in your hands? Just live the best life you can, right? And trying to avoid violence, is probably the best option. And the last Muslim I was talking to this about, by the end of the conversation, the tone had changed. And it was almost like this, still very confused, but also kind of curious. Like, why would anybody believe this? But it was less hostile than at the beginning. Like, all right, well,
Mm.
maybe there's a seed planted there. But
Well, I was in the situation. So if God wanted them dead, why did God create them?
yeah, why would the
you know,
creator of life have death be part of like worship, part of
yeah,
atonement, part of like justice? Why would death be such an integral part of all these religions
yeah.
from the creator of life? Like that doesn't make
Thou
any
shalt
sense.
thou shalt not kill except for that guy and that person and them because they're not worshiping me the right way. It's yeah, it's but that again, that's the influence of man and the Judaic influence, and the Judaic influence is, as they become a little bit more sentient in that level 1 to 5 area, and and that influence that they have over people is pretty strong. I mean, there's your there's your base ones, your drunks and your harlots
Mhm.
and all that and the flesh eaters. But there is, over time they're going to become better and more, a lot more organized in that fashion to create these problems. And
Mhm.
I think that's what you're seeing today is that organization. And it's small, it's short term, and I really like, when you follow anything about like what's going on with the sun and all that and the galactic current sheet or anything like that. Like, you follow
The
solar
the
weather
sun and
or
the
any
what? The
galactic
galactic.
current sheet. So our solar system, like, so picture like a sinus wave every, I think it's every 20, is it 12,400 years is like a sinus wave. It goes above and below the ring in the galaxy,
Okay.
the galactic current sheet. So what happens is when that happens, um, the we get hit with the galactic current, and it causes usually like disaster. So I would probably say more like AG or GI or Assyrian density or like that. But it's been known to happen where you have like a micronova or polar shift, and that's like a solar magnetic shift, and that's kind of, I think that kind of boils into what's happening as we're traveling deeper into the cosmic era, that their things are changing for us spiritually on that light level. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's probably a way to maybe shake stuff up a little bit. So people think that they know everything until the creator presents himself, and like a great disaster, or if you imagine a gigantic starship bigger than the moon showed up, what people are going to say, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like or you have a you have a big meteor, or you have like, there's a lot of that in the USP where the it falls on the nebula condenses, and I'm assuming it would be like meteor showers and shake things up a little bit. And what
Mhm.
I think we're kind of getting into that. I believe it's whatever, 7 generations. It's supposed to be 7 generations in the Cosmic era that there's going to be a little bit of shift. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I do believe there's a bit of a change coming once we hit 7 generations. In
Yeah, that
fact,
sounds about right. It's
like
like between 2 and
2046,
400
2047.
years or something like that of going like transitioning into Cosmon before it really gets into the sort of the heart of it, and then it's on. This, I mean, we are in such a privileged position to be able to witness this transition and know what's happening because of the information we have. Um, and it's the seventh era. That's one of my
Oh
favorite
yes.
part of the Awaspia before it even gets into the Awaspia is the eras. And reading that, I mean, I read it, and then I've read the Waspia several times, and every time I read it, it's like almost a new book. And the second time I
Hmm.
read that, like, holy cows, that's literally describing everything that I know has happened, and I can see like people are leaving religions by the droves, and they're leaving it for a variety of things. But the fact that they're waking up and curious is a really good sign. It almost doesn't matter where they wind up. It's the journey of just like it's like this quickening. This let's get up and go. Let's figure out what the real truth is, and you can feel it. You can feel it. People are waking up like crazy. It's very
Yeah, and
exciting.
yeah, and I think that level of light is being raised, because like I think the eventuality is that children born at a certain point will have ethereal vision as well as corporeal vision. So
Hmm.
and that will be the downward cycle of being a soul generating planet where, hey, you know what, I choose to have children, or I choose, okay, I'm ready to pop off now and move on, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I'm ready to do that. And I think it's probably 30, 40 years old. You could probably be able to do that if you lived a clean lifestyle and didn't have children. So, and then there's a lot of people that don't want to have children now too, right? So that's also part of that spiritual ascension happens faster when you don't have children. My older brother's like that. He doesn't have a child. My girlfriend is like that as well. So I mean, they're they're not tethered as we are for for 7 generations, right?
Yeah.
So, and I just think that you imagine that a generation born with that could see the ethereal realms and not just this corporeal existence. So I guess that would be you could see more than the visible band of light. It's like, oh shit, look at that.
There are children now that can do that, are at least the beginning stages of that. Like, they can be blindfolded in a dark room, and I mean, you can hold up color cards, and they'd be like, "Yep, yellow, red, whatever, numbers, 9, 10, whatever." They, they I don't know if there's, what level they're at as far as, like, being able to, but instinctively, they're able to tap into stuff, and so it's like, it's happening, I mean, right before our eyes. It's the beginnings of it. It's very
There's
exciting.
that Suis and Sargis. I'm a bit spiritually dense, I think, but I mean, if I'm like, if that makes any sense. But I do remember. So we had this go kart growing up, and my brother
Mhm.
was coming down the road, the gravel road. We grew up in the country, and he was doubling my friend, and I had this. I'm floating above it, and I see myself, and I run out in front of the go kart, and I get hit, and I fly up in the air. It was very painful. I saw the whole thing, and then
Yeah.
I had the perspective, and I did it anyways. But
Oh,
I
no.
saw. I saw the whole thing. I'm talking like 20, 30 feet above, like bird's eye view here. That about that
Oh,
level in a
wow.
dream where you think you can fly, but you can't go any higher than the telephone poles. That
Mhm.
area, and I saw the whole thing happen, and then I did it anyways. But that was the first real big spiritual experience I had, and it took me a while to come to grips with what happened. And it was less when I landed after, and the go kart was doing about 30 miles an hour, and my grandfather made it. It wasn't a light piece of machinery.
Heavy duty,
So
yeah.
and it hurt like hell. But the biggest memory of that is not the pain from getting struck by the go kart for my own stupidity, was what happened before. And there was another time there was a calf running at me at my grandfather's. He had this little hobby farm. It was a bull calf, and it was running, and it was going to cream me. I would have been in a wheelchair, and I was a heavy kid as I am a heavy adult, and I went to jump and my leg caught it. I was going over the fence, and something picked up my other leg, and I did the perfect Olympic or vault over, like they jump over the
Oh,
hurdles.
wow.
And I'm like, no way, I didn't do that. Like somebody, it's no way. I'm not even physically capable of doing that. It's like, some angelic principal said, okay, we're going to save this fat kid because he's going to be dead. And, and did that. And there's been a couple other times I'm almost in an accident. Yeah, I am not performing these maneuvers to save my life. There's no way I
Mhm.
have I had the wherewithal, and when things slow down, that type of thing. So, I mean, those spiritual
Yeah.
experiences happen to me, and I can remember them. Like I said, I'm spiritually dense, to some degree, and I've never been before this. Like I said, I was never a real big believer. Nothing really got me, but when I read that, it's just like it just filled in the blanks, and
Oh, yeah.
continues to do so for me.
Well, it's crazy because all in one book. Like, when we read Owaspy, like, we all, like, if anybody who reads Owaspy looks back in their life and they start seeing these patterns, these events, these anomalies, and like, stuff you read in the Bible, stuff you read other places, science, all these different sort of fields of interest and stories in our own lives, and they're all kind of like disconnected because some are contradictory to others. You read a Waspy, and all of a sudden it's all strung together in a way that makes sense. Like, there's no way. So,
Yeah,
like, how can one sort of composition actually be coherent enough to make everything make sense? Everything.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
How do you deny that? It's
No, like I
crazy.
said, even like Japan, the only remnants, I would imagine Easter Island too, but Japan was the only remnants of Pan, and I followed, like, listen to Graham Hancock, and where he was diving off one of the islands off Okinawa, and the temples under there, and all that, and it's where it's supposed to be, right? That's the
Mhm.
tip of Pan, and Mount Fuji was like one of the highest island, or one of the highest mountains on Pan, and it didn't get sunk, so that there was Japan, right? So there's so many things that make sense. It's
Amazing.
just, but we're I don't know if we're privileged enough, but we're in the right place at the right time to have the knowledge in order to be part of it. Because, I mean, part of it too is that we're not better than anybody else. We just happen to be, like I said, it's revealed to us for a reason. We don't know why, but
Mhm.
we'll know why when the time comes, as we always do when we do the right thing, because it's not us doing it, it's the creator. you
Yeah.
know
Mhm. What does your, girlfriend think? Is she on the same page, or
Yeah, yeah, she started to. We've been dating for a little over a year, and she's become a vegetarian. I bought her a copy of the OSP last year for Christmas, and we're just kind of starting to get into read it a little bit. But it's nothing. It's nothing that you can push on somebody. It's something you can
Yeah.
present as an idea, but it's
Hmm.
got to be, and allow the creator to work through you. And if it's, if it happens, it happens. It's because it was supposed to happen. But I kind of lead into more ask the questions versus preaching. If that,
Yeah.
when the questions are asked, why you're a vegetarian, it's like, well, how much time do you have? This is a complicated answer. This is a complicated answer. It's
Yeah.
not because I have a political belief that wants me to be there. It's because I do not want to feed off of dark vibrations of death. That's
Hmm.
you know,
I've
and
been
it's
I've been a carnivore. Like one of the things my wife and I, it was like training to be a faithist as well. We spent a year only eating fruit, so we were fruitarian.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
And then we went from that to being only eating meat, carnivore.
Okay.
And then we went to um being back to vegetarian because we found a waspy. But through the
Hmm.
course of, you know, these different sort of modes of energy in our bodies, it was like training our mind and body to understand how the body reacts on different modes. When you isolate a specific type of food and only live off of it for a year, and then you switch, you can feel it. Like my
Oh
body
yeah.
felt great as a meat eater, um, in a very sort of specific type of way. It was a different mode of energy. But
Hmm.
as a vegetarian, I would love to become a fruitarian again. I just can't afford it. My body feels good, but it's not just my body that feels good. Like you it's like different frequencies, you
Yeah,
change
for
your.
sure. Well, there's the atmospherian part of the food that you're eating, right? So if the atmospherian part of the food you're eating is death, then death is that's level one, that's level zero. But if the atmospherian
Mhm,
part of the food you're eating is a light that was grown in, then you're feeding yourself spiritually. So that's a symbiotic, we're a symbiotic being. We're our animals that, are people that are you're carrying around our forever soul in our body as it grows. And
mhm,
and that little spark of divinity we have takes a lifetime to be capable of being able to open its spiritual eyes when it's born, at the death of a corporeal body. So like I said, we're walking around, we're basically a placenta,
yeah.
walking around, or in an egg. And if you do not feed it properly, if you feed it like an animal, you're going to be like an animal. And I did hear you and Ben, I said, talking about dogs and stuff, and we give the dogs, and I love my dog. We feed those dogs our love and who we are. But eventually those dogs, they'll be with us in the afterlife as long as we need them. But their energies are level one, level two energies, right?
Mhm,
They're subjective to our spiritual experience. And
yeah.
they'll fade away. But it's just, there's actually mentioned something about dogs in the OSP too. The that reciprocal love that the dog has back for you. I think that they're probably a stronger, better than a cat, anyway. But cats
Cat-
don't care.
Cats
Cats
are really
don't care.
interesting. I have a strong affinity for cats, but it's a totally different. I mean, cats and dogs are so different from each other. It's remarkable.
Yeah, a cat. If you stopped existing and died, a cat wouldn't care. A dog would be very depressed and upset and maybe not get over it, right? But
Hmm.
and we have those attachments, and those are healthy attachments that we do need, right? That unconditional love. And and you see, when you see someone that's mean to an animal, that can actually be mean
Hmm.
to an animal or another human being, and that's what kind of trauma brought to them to that point. And
Yeah.
What caused how many jujas and are led the person to give them the trauma in the first place, and what led those, there's this thing. But when we talk about, you're talking about you and your church and going over the with religion and your diet, it's like you're working backwards, right? You're deprogramming yourself as you're growing spiritually at the same time, and that's really kind
Hmm.
of what's happening to you. Because you think about the power that you're able to break free from such spiritual brainwashing and breaking really your ancestors free at the same time, where they're helping you. You think of the power of that, the power of the creator, that's able to happen, and this happening all over the place, right? But it's a big one, not just to leave Christianity, but to actually go from Christianity, question Christianity, and to become a faithist. It's a big transition. It's a big important transition, and it's rare, right? It's rare. Doesn't mean we're
Yeah.
special. It means it's rare. Yeah.
Yeah, it is rare. I remember the perspective of being a Christian. Even okay, the last thing I said, last statement I made really to my wife when we were on our journey out before we really left Christianity, we finally realized what the Bible was. Um, a very highly compiled, edited, manipulated, you know, um, mismatch of different documents, whatever. But I was determined not to let go of Jesus. Like, okay, the Bible's manipulated, but I still believe in Jesus.
Hmm.
Letting go of that was the last thing. Once I let go of that, it's like everything else was available to me. All the other light just comes shining in. That was the last thing. I hung on to that. I let go of the Bible, I let go of Christianity, like the religion of Christianity. I would not let go of the idea of having a savior. When I let go of that, everything changed. That was
Yeah, and
amazing.
that's how much power that had over you, right? That's how much
Mhm.
power that had over you, and really your ancestors too, especially your family. So it's powerful, but it's that's why it's a big sin. It's a massive sin, right? And so I mean, these gods were deposed, but look at how many generations ago did that happen, and still the after effects are kind of rippling off today as all that stuff is boiling to the top. And even you look at some of these, the elites and their worship of Baal and Baphomet or whatever. So still remnants of those prior religions, pre-Jesus. So
Yep.
until your name is no longer worshipful, you do not move past this.
Can you see,
Also,
I can just imagine all these like Luamon and all these false gods, they've been rescued, rehabilitated, and there's like massive like a crowd of rehabilitated false gods all just still here, doing the work, stuff that you fix in their own mess that they made, in
yep.
conjunction, helping out, you know. Oh, I have a question for you because I've asked this several different people. Do you know who is the chief god of this world currently? Because I've gotten several answers.
I'd have to look that up. I remember, I think it was clear before. I'd have to get back to. I'd have to read. I'd have to pick it up and read it. I
Someone
thought it
said
was
it
named.
was a goddess, but I don't remember her name. And
Not, it
somebody
wasn't that
else,
like it's almost like
a
an Esther,
god.
but I don't think it's Esther. I forget the name. I,
Hmm.
I do. I talked with my dad. My father asked me that question about 10 years ago, and we found it, but I just can't remember what it was. But I'm sure
For
it's.
some reason, every time I read a philosophy, I mean, I'm on my third time, so it's not like a lot of times, but I would keep an eye out for that information. And for some reason, I personally have never found it. I've asked other people, and they've given me answers, but I have not been able to find that.
Yeah, I'll look. There'll be a takeaway for sure. Have you ever gone to? Is it Jamestown, New York, where the Cosman opened? Where the Fox
Mhm.
sisters and all that.
Never
I,
been to
I,
New
I
York.
Oh, okay. Well, I went there because I'm just like I'm on the Mallory Town, which is in St. Lawrence, just kind of north of, let's say, Messina, that area, Ogdensburg, New York. I'm just kind of north of St. Lawrence from there, so
Okay.
north New York. But it's down. Is it near Ithaca or Syracuse? And it was a pretty powerful place, the Fox Sisters. But I was there, and it was just there was something down there for sure. But that's where the gates were open and remain open. So
That'd be
that's where I
so
got.
cool to be able to visit some of these places. So
Yeah,
you were
there's a
you went there and you were able to feel the difference.
oh yeah, huge.
Really?
It made a big difference. Yeah, there was changes in my life after that happened. It kind of
Oh,
straightened
wow.
out my path, yeah, path a little bit, but there was just something. We were there and kind of visited the house and the whole area. There was just something there. I can't really explain it. And there was some there at the house. There's a house there where the sisters were. There's some faces symbols there, and there's some writings and stuff. So it's a I would definitely say it's worth some kind of a pilgrimage to check that out. But I did that. I guess 2006, maybe 2005. I went down there.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I was trying to find any personal writings from the Fox sisters, like journals or anything like that. Just trying to see the kind of the jargon they were using, the vocabulary, and like just as confirmation of them um sort of being in the same bandwidth of the creator and faithism and stuff. Just for
I
my
think it
own
just
eyes.
maybe just open the doors a little bit more because I believe I think that's where the Latter Day Saints and you know, Jehovah's Witnesses and that whole thing, they all kind of sprung up after that. That was
Hmm.
there's not, you know, there was a
So it was
lot of stuff that
before it.
happened. What's
Before
that?
it. It was all before.
Oh, that was okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, William Miller was the guy who was proclaiming sort of the second coming and for 1844, and
Okay.
that was called the Great Disappointment. And from that movement, from William Miller, sprang Seventh Day Adventists and
Oh, okay.
Jehovah's Witnesses, and there was like you had S- Saturday Adventists, and then you had Sunday Adventists, and they all like 200 different churches sprang up from that, and then
Oh, that broke out from there. So I'm wondering what's the actual date, and I'll have to look it up or find it, to when the Cosmic Era started and when that opened. And there's Holy Compact Day. There's something when it
mhm.
opened. Yeah,
It's like, I mean, 1880 something, right? Isn't it? Or is it the
that's when
40s?
John Bolu wrote the book. I think that's when
Yeah,
he wrote it. Yeah. So, but I'm bad with dates, and I have to write everything down, and I'm
yeah.
bad
I'm
with
not good with
dates.
that. When they do the Cosmon dates in Owaspy, I have to look it up, do the calculation, and write it in the margin. Otherwise, I will have zero idea next time I read it.
Yeah, there's some
That's
pretty
been
good
one for me.
resources. There's some pretty good resources online. So I mean, there's a lot of people that were involved and did these things before and were posting it. Like we're talking like pre-Facebook stuff. Like I remember there was like email groups and all that stuff that was happening. There has been a lot of legwork done. You know, and I
Mhm,
think there were mailers and all that stuff. And I've listened to a couple phone calls. There's some older people that were had some phone calls, and I was on them for a little bit, but I just didn't, you know. And I listen to Cosmic Cal, some of his stuff he puts up there. He's got some really interesting stuff up on YouTube as well. So there's,
mhm.
you know, the resource. But I think forming a bit of a community and us paying attention and being on the same wavelength as to what's happening, I think it's good as well. But yeah, like I said, I'm bad with dates, but I mean, a couple of things. I didn't even really know that there was a big split like that where the I'd have to do some research on that with the because I didn't know that much about the 7 Day Adventists. Yeah.
I'll have to send you a video. I found this video when I was sort of researching Adventism and whatever. This guy, he's a former Adventist, or at least that's what the topic was on. But he did like the family tree from William Miller and all the different splits. It's absolutely fascinating. And they're like they're publications like the Watchtower and like Adventist have one. You know, everybody came up with their own publication houses and their own pamphlets and stuff. And if I find it, I'll send it to you because it is really interesting.
So the witnesses, you know, they don't have any windows in there, and I just wonder. I've always often wondered. My dad brought it up too. Do they actually have some manifestations of some Jujas? Is that why they're or you know pretending to be the Almighty? Do they come down and see some of the what do they call the what do they call the top council in their church? Like I think there's like 7 or 10 of them. The elders, do they come down and actually? Is there manifestations? And I often wonder that about the elites too. Do they actually manifest to them? Right? Do they actually see them, and that's why they're so hell bent on thinking they know the truth? Right?
Yeah,
Because if you
I
have
don't
spiritual
really know what the
affirmation,
truth. So if you research Ellen White, as a kid, I mean, it was the Bible and Ellen White for Adventism. There were some really dramatic signs that she was a true prophet. Like when she
Hmm.
would go into vision, she would stop breathing, and she was um, able to do supernatural. One of the visions she had, one of these big pulpit Bibles that weigh like 20 pounds, and she's like this frail little lady. She's able to
Yeah.
hold it out like this in this vision and pointing to different texts and not breathing. Um, but it's hard to say if that's actually accurate because the mythology, the lore of it all, people want it to be true so badly. It's hard to decipher what was actually true and what became true through the the tradition of it. I've seen research that all of these things were just mimics. All of her visions were basically plagiarized from other sources, and she would hear a vision and then kind of mull it over and come up with her own unique vision. So I've seen research that shows that she was a complete fraud, and I've seen research that shows that there was supernatural things there happening. And the truth, I have no idea.
Well, and I wouldn't doubt that happening because during that time there was a lot more things because that the door was open around that time. So if
Hmm.
if 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 you had some judges or lower heavens that actually showed a miracle happening, the fervor and belief and how well anchored those religions are today, even it would make sense. But I mean, the Egyptian magicians could make
Hmm.
flowers and have them pass through brick and stone and all that too. So there were certain rites and ceremonies. So it wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if you had someone that was maybe of a pure a pure diet or some or a couple generations that they could probably pull something off like that. 'Cause you never know.
So
You never know. But it seems pretty strong, a strong root of belief for it to be not something to it a little bit.
I think there's something to it. There's a lot of supernatural stories connected with Ellen White. So I would imagine that there would be a percentage of them that would be founded in reality
Yeah, yeah, I
for
have no
sure.
doubt. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm a
I
lot
was.
more open to it now than when I was actively leaving Adventism and rejecting all of it. Now it makes sense. Like even my wife was LDS for like 15 years, and we were talking about, the visions of Joseph Smith, and they make a lot more sense now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So it does open a lot of doors, but I'm gonna probably have to take off there, Dave. It's been awesome, but let's I think these conversations happening and talking to different faiths, and let's face it, it's a small audience, and but I think
Hmm.
it's really what's needed, and to have these conversations is just to kind of meet and say, hey, you know what, we're on the same wavelength here, and their support because we're where you are and talking to people about it and trying to convince them, hey, I went through that, and we all have these
Hmm.
different perspectives and kind of help and learn. And I took a lot away from the conversation today as well. So, but I do think there's a strong group of faiths out there, and we're, like I said, we're spread pretty thin, but we're out there, and
Hmm.
there's a lot more today than there was 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for taking the time and talking to me, and we'll stay in touch, and maybe we'll do this again, and hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to include other people on YouTube. And right now I'm restricted to one guest, so I
Yeah,
got
and
some
and
learning to do.
maybe we could record a Zoom call or something. And now that I'm thoroughly aware of the differences in time zone and which way they go,
3 o'clock in the morning.
okay. All right, Dave. Nice meeting you, sir. Have a good one, brother. Okay.
All right, you
Ciao.
too. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, now I got to figure out how to end the call.
Yeah, you're gonna leave. Have a good one. Bye.
Yep. Okay. Looks like he figured out how to exit. Well, there's 3 people left, but just for the record, if anyone has made it an hour and a half into this video, if you want to talk, if you are Faithist and you want to chat, I would love to get to know you if we haven't talked before. And if you are not a Faithist and you come across this video and you want to talk about Faithism and contrasting it with what you believe in your journey. I like talking to people of all walks of life because that's how it needs to be. Be able to just connect. We're all brothers and sisters of humanity, and the more we can connect without judging each other and condemning each other and just sharing, I think the better off we'll be. But with that, I'm going to say peace and light to everybody, and hope you have a blessed day.